Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk now. We always talk about ISO 222. Are you into this particular ISO 222 type token slash coin project? Are you in this particular one? So on and so forth. But when it comes to specifically Quant, yeah, they're an ISO, but they're not ISO 222. They're ISO TC 307. What exactly is that, and why does it matter to you? Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it into today's Quant coverage. And we have a new person that we're going to use for a source. Shout out to this particular one. I'm going to go ahead and actually blow this up just a little bit more. And this particular guy did a really, really good job of getting right into this. So his name is Tokenizer. And, Tokenizer. You can follow him at Tokenizer. And basically, it shows some of the specifics in regards to this particular breakdown, which I thought was very well done. So actually, I'm going to full screen just a little bit more, just to make it easier for you guys to read. And on top of that, it's not just reading things verbatim. I was really, really blown away with his particular research. And I said to myself, this is totally worth sharing. So I went ahead and followed him back. And I highly recommend you do so as well. And look at that, even Quant Papa follows him, right? We also have, I think even Greg LUNC might follow him. Quanto follows him. So, I mean, not the only one who recognizes talent, to say the least. All right, so the adoption of ISO TC307 continues. In this particular thread, we're going to have a breakdown in regards to Bitt Global. Now, if you're wondering about Bitt Global specifically, right? Bitt Global is a financial software company that catalyzes the transformation from traditional to digital currency systems. You like hearing that because that spells what? Adoption. Right, so we're going to dive in. And if anything, it does a particular breakdown. I'm going to get to some key highlights. So, BITT is a digital finance services company offering an array of services that are fit right into the future of what? Regulated digital currencies. Specifically CBDC and stablecoin sandboxes, deployment, workshops, and so on and so forth, right? Now, here's some key highlights. I'm going to blow this up. Here's their purpose. So here's some specific highlights. In response to the rapidly growing need, they have deployed, or I should say developed, an industry-leading suite of comprehensive financial technology solutions. What specifically? Well, some of the ones you see right here, their goal is to ensure that every stakeholder in your financial ecosystem derives the maximum possible benefit from what? Digital currency implementation. On our previous Quant video, we talked about the implementation period. This is what I'm talking about. If anything, I saw this and I said to myself, this is a great segue going from the last video transitioning into this one. So if anything, I think you guys appreciate this type of content. So it says, by providing accessible, low-cost digital currency solutions, we can help our clients lower infrastructure costs, increase revenue, improve financial inclusion, elevate the user experience of financial transactions. By the way, they have also partnered with central banks. Who also is partnering with central banks? Yeah, Quant. So governments and fintech sector participants around the world, assisting with every aspect of the digital currency and stablecoin operationalization process, right? And then on top of that, there's a whole big breakdown on what they believe, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to get to the highlights. They believe that central bank digital currencies help to forge open, safe, and competitive economic systems, despite all the doom and gloom that people want to focus on in regards to the World Economic Forum. Now, we're not going to, go that particular route, but we can definitely recognize that things like this, these deep dives, the research behind some various different organizations like this is worth looking at. So when I got more into this, I saw this as well, and it says, we have developed digital currency solutions that transform our aspirational concepts into what? Reality. They catalyze, I should say, the imperative transformation from traditional currencies and legacy systems to fully operationalize CBDC and stablecoin platforms. The key thing here is that transformation from traditional currencies to, and also legacy systems for that matter, to just that CBDC. And already you see the tremendous amount of that want, that need, that supply, that demand for this. Remember, we're talking about utility. We used, for instance, that particular Mark Cuban example with Ethereum. You can apply that to what is referred to as a utility run. A utility run is imminent. All right, I'm going to get a little bit more into this. So, as we went further down, it states, as we can see, Bitt Global has collaborated with some massive entities and are even up there with large names such as HSBC, which by the way is a Quant partner, IBM, another Quant partner, Consensus, etc., right? Excuse me. On top of that, they're building up quite a reputation around the world of institutional digital currencies for sure. Now, if you've been following us on XLM, you already have understood the importance of specifically when it comes to being built on Stellar, right? The MoneyGram system and so on. But when you also understand some of the nitty-gritty behind some of the specific wants and needs of some of these third world countries like Nigeria, you could also draw some of these other connections when it comes to them recognizing just that, the importance of utility, because for instance their particular currency, when it's traded, if you will, on the foreign exchange, by the time they send it to a particular person in another country, it has dramatically diminished in value. Well, what various organizations basically help solve real world use case at scale that nobody else is doing? Well, let's face it, we know the answer. It's Quant. So I like the idea that they use some of these particular examples. And again, the original source right here is from Reuters. We do cite Reuters quite often, but it helps pound it home even that much more when it comes to understanding the utility behind all this. Now, of course, we established utility quite a bit when it comes to Quant. And when we talk about, for instance, the implementation period, this gives a better perspective on how this all works. So, for instance, Nigeria is to partner with Bitt Inc. to launch e-Naira, the digital currency. Again, I highly recommend you check out our last XLM video, even if you're not into XLM. Reason for it is it gives you a particular video analysis, if you will, when it comes to a particular individual who is from Nigeria, who breaks down the importance of digital currency and specifically the Naira. Nigeria will work with Bitt Inc. as a technical partner in its bid to launch its own cryptocurrency, the e-Naira, or the central bank, according to the central bank, which of course they said on Monday. Bitt stablecoin and digital wallet will go live in Central America. Go to the next page. There's all sorts of particular breakdowns and how this all happened, dating all the way back to 2018. As far as the key highlights and specifics on this, back in 2019, you had that ECCB pilot. They signed a contract with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to conduct a blockchain issue central bank digital currency CBDC pilot within the 8 countries of Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, which is the ECCU. And the point is this: we already established with Quant those CBDC connections, and they do it at scale that nobody else is technically doing as we speak. If anything, you do see, for instance, other cryptocurrencies that are tied into this. But when it comes to specifically working with some of these governments at scale that Quant does, I don't think there's any comparison. Again, we've covered for many months now LAC chain. Now recently, hey, I think if anything, you start seeing more and more of this. Hence Nigeria and a whole slew of other countries that are going to be onboarded soon. Who's tied into all this? Definitely Quant. So when we get more into this, I scroll down and I found this to be interesting as well. And it is part of the outline. So it says, now this is where things get exciting, especially if you're a fan of Quant. Yeah, that's why we're all tuned in, right? Bitt also has a focus on the importance of interoperability in CBDCs. Now, we have heard that before. Now, in regards to some of the specifics, they have this. Latest thought leadership, the importance of interoperability in CBDCs. Obviously, we know about the importance. But in regards to the specifics, one key area that I thought was cool to mention was CBDC functionality has been coming under increased scrutiny, and for a good reason. One element that consistently emerges as critical is the interoperability of CBDC systems, both with respect to cross-currency integrations and integrations with legacy financial networks and service providers. Again, the Quant connection. As we get more and more into this, states specifically, and I can't get over how well Tokenizer basically broke this down, but in the PDF, it mentions there's drops of public and private DLTs in the context of interoperability. And of course, let's face it, when it comes to Quant, that's their basic slogan, interoperability. But here's one of the key things. The mentions of Corda. Now again, when it comes to that R3 Corda bridge with XDC, that's a whole other thing in itself. Game changer for XDC, right? And also you have Hyperledger, both private DLTs, Quant's connected to both of them, right? When we say Quant's connected to everything, it literally is. Also notice the focus on MIT's work with the Federal Reserve, who signed the collaboration with MIT just 2 months after the SATP draft to IETF. And of course, here at CTN, we established those particular connections. In fact, Gilbert just got back not that long ago from Massachusetts, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Getting more further into this, it says Bitt's CBDC platform enables smooth integration with financial intermediaries, as we know, and decentralized finance, DeFi asset markets with proven network security and carefully designed privacy protections. But here's one of the key things. You have, for instance, the tools that provide interoperability. With that said, you have, for instance, private permission networks such as Hyperledger, R3's Corda, and MIT's OpenCBDC that you see right here, as well, of course, as other public networks such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and yeah, even Stellar, which we cover here at CTN quite a bit. You see where that's pointing down to Hyperledger, R3's Corda, MIT. They have all shown that particular API gateway support. Who provides an API gateway at scale that nobody else does? Quant. How do we know that? We've given you guys countless examples on those particular diagrams. Now, in regards to a little bit more, in regards to a little bit more of this, sometimes I get so ahead of myself. Sorry. It mentions that development of OpenCBDC-TX is still going with planned phase 2 research by who? The Boston Federal Reserve and MIT. And again, like we pointed out, that Quant connection. Literally seen it. You also seen, for instance, this reported by who? The Digital Pound Foundation. Who's part of the Digital Pound Foundation? Gilbert Verdian, CEO of Quant. On top of that, when we go to the next slide, you see that, for instance, we have this particular example, and it states specifically that when it comes to nodes, we have node types and server requirements, private permission, open, etc. But they have, for instance, compatible software languages and libraries that point specifically to an API gateway which equals all languages. What is that exactly? Well, TC307. What is TC307? The ISO standard created by Gilbert Verdian of Quant, in which was in its inception phase back in 2014 and implemented, if I'm not mistaken, 2015, 2016. Top of that, when we get more into this and we scroll down, you see this particular person here. And that is Bitt's co-founder and CIO, Simon Chantry. He's basically been working in the space of digital currencies for, like he said, a hot minute, and is even building a CBDC standard for interoperability, collaboration, and that's amazing, right? Because if anything, we understand how Gilbert Verdian's very own, or I should say Quant's very own Gilbert Verdian has that particular experience, so on and so forth. Now it says, also notice the OECD background, which is a SSB Simon, who is basically a board member, I should say, for the blockchain. Um, Now, specifically, he has a background in nuclear commissioning engineering. My goodness. Co-founded BITT in 2013 and has since been working within the global digital currency space. Simon is a board member of OECD's Blockchain Expert Policy Advisory Board, and he's also a member of the World Economic Forum. Interesting. So, when we jump further down to this, it also mentions that he is also part of a consortium and has been featured as a blockchain and DLT expert at numerous international government, regulatory, and technology-centered forums. So whether you're for the World Economic Forum and so on, what do they consistently have done? They always consistently recognize people who are experts in these particular fields of expertise. Gilbert Verdian, Quant, they even recognize what? LCX as of recently when it comes to their specific exchange. Now, it says that Simon brought BITT's digital currency management system, DCMS, a solution critical for the authorization. I'm not even saying that right. It just looks weird. I'm saying it right. Operationalization of CBDC and digital currencies. I apologize. Sometimes I read so much that it's just I get tongue twisters once in a while. For all ecosystem participants to market and was instrumental in the deployment, in multiple jurisdictions across the world. Now, he states Simon is currently working to establish BITT's CBDC standards and best practices to enable interoperability and effective CBDC project collaboration among international central banks. He's a big player, the whole point. And if he is such a big player, how does this apply to adoption? We're going to pound that home a little bit more here in a bit. So, for instance, you see that the OECD is an organization for economic cooperation and development. They work specifically with public plus private sectors to build international standards and policies for quote unquote a better world, right? Whether you're on par with that or not is beyond the point. The point is, one of the sectors they're building is these specific policies which are around blockchain and distributed ledger technology. Now, if you're wondering about the global reach, the OECD is at the heart of international cooperation. Their member countries work with other countries, organizations, and stakeholders worldwide to address the pressing policy, the challenges of our time. And of course, towards the end of the video, I'm going to tell you guys about something about how one of the biggest challenges of our time is to solve the supply chain logistical problem that we have in our country and many others. All right. So, who builds the standards of this particular industry? Well, as we know, for instance, Gilbert Verdian has a background of developing standards. For instance, ISO TC 307, right? But it says the guys who build global standards for everything are just that. People who provide, for instance, some of the things that you see here. So, for instance, you have ISO and OECD, which are working together to accelerate the adoption of DLT standards. And that's one of the key things I want you guys to take away from these particular deep dives that we do. When you have, for instance, these particular people who are quote-unquote experts, officially recognized by the World Economic Forum, so on and so forth, right? Where they're working together to accelerate the adoption of DLT standards, you can draw your own conclusion when it comes to what that supply and the demand, and going from that stage to implementation, and an implementation to what? Mass adoption. Mass adoption equals what? Crazy parabolic levels, to say the least, when it comes to your particular cryptos. We have not had a utility run crypto ever. Why? Because all this was being built. That's why there's so much emphasis on these specific ISOs. Now, going more further into it, it states, and I'll just jump to this specific area. The ISO is advanced in its development of technical industry standards for blockchain. Now look at where this arrow goes. What other standards besides ISO TC 307? Well, we'll get more and more into that. It says, as we look for or further in the OECD times ISO collaborations, we see just how deep these ties run. This was a European Union focused discussion on DLT standardization, and who do we see? Well, for instance, we see another key OECD member, like mentioned above. We have, for instance, this particular person who is Ismail Erebos, who's a TC 307 WG3 convey. I'm not even pronouncing that right. That might be a typo. Anyway, and finally, none other than Gilbert Verdian himself, a quant. And that's my key thing, right? I always like recognizing some of these other people, but when it comes to Gilbert Verdian, he takes the cake, and he takes it every single time. And of course, you have some of these particular outlines, how they reference some of this. Now, I do like this point, and then Tokenizer basically mentions this. So he says it's pretty apparent that Bitt Global is working within the ISO TC 307 framework and adopting the standard in their operations. And I also want to state this for the record. I like the idea that you see another big player who's an expert other than just Gilbert Verdian of Quant, because it pounds home that much more the significance of an ISO standard, but specifically TC 307. We're always talking about ISO 222, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You know, if anything, that should be the emphasis, because that is, for instance, where we're going, and the significance of it is that mandate for for instance, like, XRP, right? That on-demand liquidity, right? And how we're going to be able to transfer huge conglomerate amount of money cross-border and also overseas. Okay, so it states specifically, though, if it wasn't enough, check out BITT's Executive Vice President, Imran Khan, who is a committee member of Standards Council Canada to adopting ISO TC 307. And if anything, if you just fast forward to this specific part, this is the nuts and bolts of this whole video. So a little bit more of a deeper dive into this specific person. And I understand for some people, maybe you're not a big fan of deep dives, but I think the overall majority of you guys, from the feedback I've been getting, is that you really, really appreciate this. And I appreciate you guys as well. So Imran Khan is the Executive Vice President, Partnerships at BITT. He basically possesses over 15 years of technology experience, spanning all aspects of information technology, which allows him to bring technology aspirations from idea to reality. And that's where I get super excited, because now you don't just have, for instance, like maybe Martin Hargreaves and a few other people from Quant, obviously Gilbert Verdian and so on, representing that ISO TC 307 standard. You literally have other experts from other organizations. What organization? This one specifically, right? When it comes to BITT. Okay. Now, it mentions, for instance, this is going to allow him to bring technology aspirations from idea to reality, like we mentioned. But over the years, he specifically assumed roles in IT advisory, project management, software development, IT operations. That right there, to me, I'm already thinking like the likes of what? Oracle. Why is that significant? Well, again, we'll get more into that. While in Deloitte's core digital asset and blockchain practice, he was, listen to this, the global CBDC leader and chaired the CBDC committee composed of leaders from all international markets. He also delivered several blockchain-based solutions for clients, including, listen to this, a digital asset and management solution for a large Canadian financial institution. Imran is a member of the Standards Council of Canada's committee, contributing specifically to international blockchain standards, ISO TC 307. So we have another big player, not just from the UK now, from literally Canada's committee. Now, getting more into this, because we need to. In case anybody's forgotten, The advisory to the Bank of International Settlements. Yes, you heard me right. You've been following some of our XRP coverage. Been following the live show. Who mentions the Bank of International Settlements all the time? Crypto Lulu. He mentions it all the time. The Bank of International Settlements. That's key. Because, like it shows here, also holds the same position to Standards Council in Canada, or Council of Canada, or ISO TC 307. So now you have Gilbert Verdin, Martin Hargreaves, the rest of the Quant team. And it's to a sense, it's like you're networking with other experts who recognize your specific ISO standard. So it's not just, UK specific adoption. We're talking worldwide adoption. Literally, the next sentence mentions this. So we are seeing the adoption, just like I mentioned, of TC 307 all over the fintech space, and it's beautiful. Yes. Oh, this is why I love talking about Quant. This is why I continuously love to cover Quant. And I think, if anything, you guys appreciate too. And I really, really appreciate some of the feedback. I think it's awesome. Now, in regards to that interoperability, right? It says specifically, White a position to be holding advisor for the BIS. Committee member to TC 307 Standards Council ties what we know in this even further. And we got to pound this home a little bit more, because why not? So you have this specific person. His name is Daniel Eden. He's an advisor for who? The Bank of International Settlements. Do not feel even that much more bullish. If you know some of the terminology, and if you've done some of your particular research, like for instance, Corda, some of these other things and so on, then you understand why we get so excited. Here's some of his specific experience. He's an advisor for the solution architect of the Bank of International Settlements from June of 2021 to present. Top of that, he's a committee member of Digital Currency Global Initiative, AIRU, a little over 22 years. I wish. 2 years, Geneva, Switzerland. He also helped in regards to the architecture of just that, the interoperability, requirements and use cases, working stream, Digital Currency Global Initiative, so on and so forth. But one of the key areas, right, is that he was part of this ISO TC 307 blockchain distributed ledger technologies, standardizations, and so on. Because, if anything, he worked with the Standards Council of Canada, basically almost 3 years, actually. Lots and lots of impressive experience, but look at the bottom. And look where it mentions at the top above his head, right? You see specifically Corda mentioning this. So it says, to conclude, does this directly benefit Quant? And that's, of course, the kicker, right? And for some of the people that are speculative about Quant and saying basically, this is all speculation, but they have countless partnerships. Well, it's just all speculative. Until I see price action, I don't believe in this. They're basically what? Interconnected, or, at scale of, oh God, it was 101, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's 104. I don't know. But it's 100 plus blockchains. So they make 100 plus blockchains interoperable. So, does this directly benefit Quant in the aspect of the numbers to basically go up? Well, not exactly, but this does show the scale of adoption in what specifically TC 307, and like he mentions, the standard Quant has built and runs on. That's the key thing. The adoption of TC 307 only strengthens the recognition of Quant solutions that much more, and I couldn't agree more. So of course he thanks us and so on. And Token Nicer, if you happen to watch this video at any point, I hope you do. Maybe Quant Pop or somebody like that will tag you. Maybe I'll tag you. But very, very well put together research. I'm glad to bring it in a video format to you guys. Like he mentions, he'll do his best to bring quality DLT research on networks like Quant, DAG, and some of these other ones. Casper, ALBT, we cover those as well. And last but not least, the adoption of ISO TC 307 continues. And of course, we'll do more and more updates in regards to this. That was really, really cool. I'm going to show you guys this before we get to the very end. And that was this right here. Straight from the Federal Reserve. So all the doubters out there, Max, you don't know what you're talking about. This is all speculation. I am a quant atheist or something like that. You know what I mean? I just don't believe. Okay. You know, I'm making fun of those people. I'm just saying. There's the non-believers. And this is not me really trying to sell anybody on anything. It's not financial advice. It's just I am passionate about quant. I'll be honest. So, straight from the Federal Reserve, you see these particular connections. The capability will also exist to plug a decentralized exchange, a DEX, into a network like what? Overledger. Who runs Overledger? Quant. That's their operating system. It says where $1 million transaction can be broken up into hundreds of millions of micropayments among billions, for that matter, moving fractions of a cent out of any asset into any other asset on the network or another decentralized exchange or regulated exchange is willing to offer. Key thing here, regulated exchange. Obviously, we have regulation looming here soon. Very, very soon. So this is why I want to pound home the whole thing of, for instance, Quant, in my humble opinion, is regulation safe. I think they've proven that, right? And not only that, everything you mentioned, you see here, you know, why would the Federal Reserve specifically mention Overledger? Yeah, it doesn't say Quant, but you know, come on, who runs Overledger? Quant. My goodness, Max, I don't see it. It doesn't say it. Okay. All right. Before we close things up, I got to give you guys, I know I've been getting a lot of great feedback, and I love it. So people, you know, want more quant coverage. They come to the live. I love it. It's just great. You know, it makes me want to put out more and more of these particular videos, right? Now, here's the thing I want to talk about. In a future quant video, might very well be the next quant video, but I'm not guaranteeing that. I want to give you a taste of the things to come. Quant is not just payments, right? Well, we put a lot of focus on that, but it's not just that. They will also help solve some of the supply chain problems we have in the world, the logistic, you know, problems that we have in the world. And let's face it, it's a big problem. Now, this has particular sound on it, and so it's not like really like, I don't know, amazing music or anything like that. I just don't want to get the copyright strike because of, you know, monetization purposes. But I'm going to play this. Hold on a second. And if anything, you're probably dealing with this as well. I know I am. I mean, come on, $8 for eggs, stuff like that. Are you kidding me? $6 to $8 for a dozen eggs. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I live in Phoenix. We're doing it. All you guys are dealing with it. Watch this. Be right back.
Now.
$8.59 for cereal, $9.99 for, you know, eggs. Oreos supposed to be like pretty cheap, $6.69. Are you kidding me? This is just, it's unbelievable. So my point is this: we definitely have a supply chain issue, and if Quant can also help contribute to solve things for blockchain, like blockchain gets involved, and we're able to solve real world use cases. Again, some of that utility basically gets triggered in. Let me come back in the frame. Guys, I want to state this. I love doing these particular deep dives for you. I think, if anything, if you're passionate about listening to Quant or doing more of your own specific research, that's awesome. Be passionate. Whatever your passion, make it happen, like the song goes, right? So, with that said, let me know what you guys think in regards to this. Are you excited about more of this TC307 adoption? Because basically, that is the standard that Gilbert Verdian originally introduced roughly in 2014, and it's nice to see now other countries, if you will, other experts from other countries get involved. I'm that much more excited because, again, just like in the last particular quant video, the implementation period, I think that's what we're basically getting into, and then from there it's basically the utility kicking in. So we mentioned some of these specific things about the utility run. I don't think we're too far off. You know, we could have a possible delay, let's face it, and so on. A lot of times things don't happen on one specific day or time. You know, I'm not a fortune teller to say the least, but man, a lot of this adds up. When you see, for instance, that want and need for these CBDCs, whether you're for CBDCs or not, is beyond the point. My thing is, I am not going to be on the sidelines ever again when it comes to building that generational wealth for me, my family, and so on. Quant is not only my meal ticket, it's my kids, kids' meal ticket. So incredibly excited about this time that we're in. Never been this excited since I basically turned 8K into 88K with Shiba. You know, I'll just be honest. Quant excites me that much more. It's one of the main ones we cover here at CTN. And guys, I can't thank you enough for the reception that you've been giving us in regards to Quant and some of these other ones. So if you enjoy coverage like this and you want more of it, come join us on the live shows every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for Crypto Talk Now. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already, everybody. Please hit that bell notification. It does help not only give you notifications, but it helps with the YouTube algorithm. With that said, thanks for watching. You all have a blessed day. We will see you on the next one.